Hey, it's Sarah with House Copper. Today I am going to do a step-by-step how to build a lid. Now, there are a lot of different ways to make a lid for cookware, and lids are one of the few things especially in vintage cookware that go missing, get really wrecked and mangled, dented, things like that. And it's one of the things that I'm asked to make a lot. And there are a couple different ways you can do it. I'm going to show you the traditional early 1800s way out of sheet metal. There's other ways to do it, which I can do at a later date, and I'm actually going to break this up because there's a lot of parts to this, and if I'm going to do this bit by bit, I think I might try and do this into a two-part series at least on all the pieces, just because getting the pieces in the rim bands done are one thing, and then doing all the seam work and doing any handle work and things like that are a whole nother process. So I'll probably break this up into two, part one and part two, on how to build a traditional lid that is one that has what is called a rim band, and it's a slightly smaller diameter of the interior diameter of your pot that sits inside, so that like when there's any type of heat or steam and it kind of rattles, it doesn't slide off, it catches itself. So that's what I'm going to show you how to build. So without further ado, here is part one of how to build a lid. The first thing you're going to do when you build a lid is you're going to have to figure out the diameter of the piece that you are fitting a lid to the top. You actually want to get the exterior diameter figured out. So there is going to be some math to this process. For all intents and purposes, we are going to pretend that our exterior pot is going to be, let's say 4 inches in diameter. So that's the very exterior part of your pan, 4 inches. But you're also going to be using a crimp seam to set down the rim band on the inside. So you then have to add an 1/8 inch to both sides of your diameter. So you're actually going to cut a circle that's not 4 inches, but it's 4 1/4 inches. I have a video on this, and I'll post it down on how to use a circle cutter and do all the math for that. But suffice to say, if you have a diameter, you're going to add a 1/4 inch for an 1/8 inch burr for a crimp seam, no matter the diameter of your piece. And then the blank that you're going to cut to use the circle cutter is actually going to be 4 1/2 in order to cut a 4 1/4 diameter circle. So that's what we're going to do first. So here's just a blank, but it's way too big, and you actually want to not have a ton of material that's in your circle cutter. It just jams up and it's a little more unwieldy. So whenever you're cutting a circle, the least amount of material on the exterior of the square, the easier it is going to be for you. So I'm going to cut this to 4 1/2. I need to grease this. And then 4 1/2 over here. This method is actually really good for any type of lid, whether it's for a mug, a coffee pot, a teapot, or a larger pot. This can be used for all diameters. Now, the larger the diameter, the more you're going to be fighting the material as you continue to work with it, and as you continue to shape it. It's just you're dealing with more displacement of the copper crystal structure, so there'll be certain times where it's more bothersome. These smaller ones are a lot easier to deal with. So over to the circle cutter. Okay, so here at the circle cutter, I'm going to adjust this to be 4 1/4. Really close. And then if you watch my circle cutting video, how to use a circle cutter, I'll explain this even more in detail, but you want a very little material going under the cutting wheel. You want to stop right in the even area. And there is the start of our lid. All right, now the circle cutter, no matter how nice you've got the wheels going, will always leave a burr. And I'm hoping you can see this edge here is slightly raised. Now, if you want, you can take a rubber mallet or a rawhide and you can flatten this out just a little bit, or you can use the burr as your start, or this little burr is the start of your final burr, which is what we're going to do next. All right, this is the burring machine. And what you do is you make sure that the space, and I'll bring you closer. What you're going to be doing is you're gonna make sure that the space between this part of the wheel and the backstop here is 1/8 of an inch, because that is your burr, okay? So, I'm trying to do this so you can see. Looks like we're at 1/8. Perfect. All right. Now, you can do the burr itself a number of ways. You can hold it like this, and you're not gonna go down super far, and you can guide it this way. What you're gonna wanna do is constantly be pushing this part into the backstop. The rest of it will feed through. So you're looking against the backstop, not where it's coming out. But I learned from Bob to just take a garden glove and add a bunch of extra leather, because otherwise you'll cut your hand. And you don't need to crank all the way on this, okay? So you actually are just getting it so it holds it in place like this. Then, all right, so now we have a bird lid. Now, it's a little wobbly, but that's okay. And you might notice, like, you might get little crimps here. That's fine, because what we're actually gonna do now is we're gonna raise the lid, and after we raise the lid, there's gonna be a little bit of back and forth to get this this all ready to go and ready to be measured and to take a rim band. Okay, so off to raise the lid. Okay, so this is a bottoming stake, double bottoming stake, depending on what you want to use it. And I'm going to be going back and forth between this edge here and this little swedge block that Bob makes at his place, that he makes out of a really hard wood. If you are a blacksmith or you have access to anything made out of metal, that works too. However, that will really damage your copper. So for instance, you can see an iron one will really scratch up and really dent all of your copper, because you're dealing, even if you're using tin plate. So something like this, it seems really smooth, and it is pretty smooth for iron, but it is still going to really destroy your copper or your tin surface. So ideally, if you decide to raise your lid, you want something that's out of wood and super smooth that you can sand really finely. unless you like it. And now I'm gonna raise this. It's just the way that I like the look. Bob does it a lot for his mugs and his tea kettles and coffee pots. You do not have to raise the lid. You can leave it flat, but for this particular video, we're gonna raise it. Now, you're gonna use a rubber mallet and you're gonna hold it along the burr. If you miss, you will be smashing your fingers against the sharp burr here, and you will cut your fingers. You can use gloves, or you can just suffer pain and bleeding like I do, but that's something to be aware of as well. All right. Now notice how I'm kind of going gently and I'm kind of going in a circle like this. That's so that you don't dent. If you go too hard in one place, you're gonna end up with a deep crease. Sometimes you can hammer it out. It will still be visible. And other times you won't be able to hammer it out and you'll have to start all over again. So what you're gonna be doing is kind of a circle, a gentle circle, round and round and round. Now, if you don't have a rounded hammer like this is square, it's not gonna give you a totally great rounded lid. I'm going to very gently use the only rounded one I have, which is this particular planishing hammer. It is gonna dent it just a little bit, but I'm going to like the much more rounded look. So if you can have something on the rounded side, that's gonna give you that real rounded lid. Otherwise it'll look a little flatter because hammer heads are flat. So I'm gonna finish with this and then we will do the last little bit on the bottoming stake. All right, so now that I have my rounded lid that has like a nice dome to it, then I'm gonna put it here and I'm just gonna take out the last few little wrinkles along my burr, which is only going to make setting down that crimp seam a lot easier later on. All right, so we have the start of a lid. Now, the next thing to do is to do a rim band. Okay, so when we make a rim band, what you need to do is you need to take the diameter of your piece. So we have a 4-inch circle, essentially, now that we have used up that 1/8 inch on both sides of this for that 1/4 inch extra. So the interior diameter of this is 4. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take 4, or your diameter, your interior diameter of your piece, and you're going to take it times pi. So in this case, we're ending up with 12.56. But I also need to make allowances for a lap seam burr of the rim band, which usually is around 1/8 of an inch or 3/16. So just to be safe, I'm actually gonna end up cutting a strip that is going to be 13 3/4, 13.75, just to give myself some wiggle room to play around with. So back to the stomp shears. All right, we have a nice long piece here. We're actually going to cut this first to 12 3/4. And then I'm going to cut this to 7/8 of a strip. So I'm gonna do it over here because it's easier to see. Oh, come on. And here is the start of a rim band. Now we're gonna take this over, we're gonna notch it really quick for the for the lap seam, and then we're gonna put it on the bar folder. So first, we're gonna go do our little notch. Now, if you have a notcher or a nibbler, that works fine, or else you can just use your tinner snips. And all you're going to do is you can measure it or you can eyeball it, and you're going to cut out an 1/8 by an 1/8 little corner only on one side. See, this is another reason we're gonna break this up into multiple pieces, because you get to kind of use all the tools just to make a lid. I think we're not using the turning, wiring, or beading, and otherwise, or the grooving. Otherwise, we're basically using every single tinner and coppersmith tools. So anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold this, and I'm gonna make sure understand. Here we go. And then I'm going to really make sure it's nice and tight. There we go. All right, so now I have a rim band that has a single fold. You can do this a double fold if you want. I'm not going to this time, but you can if you want to. It's always gonna get food in it. That's why you can tin it after the fact if you're worried about that. But for this particular one, we're just gonna do a single fold. But like I said, you can make your burr deeper and you can do a double fold if you so desire. Now we're gonna move on to the rollers. All right, so here's the roller. I usually back it off just a little bit because you don't know how tight it is. And then what you're going to actually do, even though, and this doesn't really have a place for me to do, put a wire or something like that, but that's okay in this case. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to wire it so that the fold is to the inside of the circle. You don't want this fatter turned edge here to be on the outside, because then when you bend it around like this and it's going in and out of the pot, this part of your rim band is going to catch. But you want that extra thickness for strength. That's why we're folding it. So I'm going to put it to the inside. This is really soft copper. It looks like I don't need to worry about it. All right, so there's our rim band. Now we have to solder our lap seam here. Okay, so here's our rim band, right? The part that you want to line up is the part that's gonna be visible. So right here is where you want it to line up. Now also, you are going to want to slide your burred edge or your cut edge here underneath that. See how that fit in like a lock? I hope that's visible. I'll try and do it again here. So here, and then you slide it in. See it? Now, but we're also, before we do this, we're gonna make sure it fits into our lid, especially since this is all a new measurement for me. So let's go double check. Now remember, this is gonna have a burr, so we essentially don't care if it's too loose, because then we can adjust the burr. So it's definitely too big. So, and sometimes you'll discover that copper. So then you can kind of, if you want, you can eyeball or whatever. And remember, I added that extra ½ inch just to be safe. And that's what's biting me in the butt right now. But you don't want to cut too much, because again, you still have that lap seam you want to take care of. Make sure that you can, and you're going to cut the side that doesn't have that notch. And you're gonna sometimes have to reopen what you just cut so that you can slide in it. Anyway, all right. So, good. Now it'll fit once I create a 1/8 burr on my rim band. All right, now we can go and solder it. If you're using tin, you can use a soldering iron. If you're using copper, you're gonna wanna use a blowtorch. So, blowtorch. Okay, so, and also another hint, do you see how this is not perfectly round here? Before you solder that, hammer it down. Once again, just to save yourself. All right, flux. If you have questions about the flux, it's in the notes below. So read, and these shall find answers. Then because I'm just using the torch, I have just a tiny piece of solder here. I'm gonna have this sit here while I grab the torch. Hopefully you can see what I'm gonna do. I'll try. There's our seam. All right, so after you solder your lap seam, be sure to wash it off, because whether it's tin or copper, if you leave the flux on too long, you will notice that it etches the material and it makes it look kind of dull and kind of splotchy. So take off the flux right away if you can. Now we're gonna go back to the burring machine. We've already kept this at 1/8 inch, so we're gonna stay with 1/8 inch. And I'm going to find my glove. And what you're going to do is you're gonna burr the side that does not have the fold. So I'm going to, if you can see, here's the fold. I'm gonna burr this side, all right? So I hope that this is visible enough. And actually, I don't know why I'm wearing the glove. There's nothing to cut me on this particular use. All right, because this side is of course bent over, it's not sharp. So, I'm pressing with this finger, keeping the metal against the backstop as I go. And you're gonna hit that seam. Be careful, it'll bounce on you. So again, see the pressure? Oh, I hope you can see the pressure of this finger? I'm pushing it against that backstop. That's where my pressure point is. Now I'm gonna start pulling it up while still putting pressure. So I'm hoping you can see my hand, how tight that is. I don't know if it's real hard to show, maybe over the top, but that's the pressure. So hard hands. Always hard hands, hard fingers, calloused fingers. Now you don't need to go all the way to 90 on this if you don't want to, and also you have to be careful that this face doesn't scratch your body component, because now this is pretty good at 90 degrees, but we're going to do one last thing to it just to make sure that this 90-degree burr is in great shape to go into the top of the lid. And that is over here, follow me, is using the setting down machine. I told you we were going to use like all the tools. So here's a setting down machine. And all I'm doing is I'm making this burr sit nice and flat. Oops, I ran off. And 90 degrees. So you're holding this at 90 degrees against this face here. And that's just gonna make, again, setting down that crimp seam really, my gears are really tight. Really nice and easy for you. You're just trying to get as nice of a finish as possible. And actually by the, that's why. By the seam is where you're gonna see the biggest bump. So as you can see there we go. All right, nice. All right, and I don't know if you can tell, but it is an extreme, for how thin this is, I mean, we're looking at less than an inch. For how thin this is, it is extreme. I have strong hands, and I mean, yeah, you could bend it, there's some give, but this is an extremely strong piece now, which is what you want for a rim band. You don't want it to be flopping all over the place. So now we're gonna go fit it into our lid, and we're gonna set down our crimp seam on the anvil. Something else, FYI, if you do this and you discover that your burr right here that you're gonna set down inside your lid is a little wobbly or not straight, or there's like a sharp edge, just take a snips to it and kind of even it out. And you also, I might even show you depending on how this is, if this doesn't fit just by a little bit, you can tiny take off all along this this bird edge here to get it to fit. Likewise, if it's a little too small, you can really smash it down with that setting down machine and spread those copper crystals out just a little bit, and sometimes that'll make a less loose fit. So here comes, let's hope she fits. And it's perfect. Huh. It's like I know how to do math. All right, so look at how, and I'll do it again if I can get it out. So here's our bird edge, right? Here's the bird edge here. And you're going to lay it in, and it doesn't quite totally fit, but you just kind of push. Now, of course, can I do it again? Yep. And it's nice and snug. That's awesome. Now we have to set down where this burr is sitting in there and this burr is standing up. We're gonna bend this burr over to create a crimp seam. Okay, so because this is rounded and we already raised this, which you do wanna do ahead of time, we won't be able to put it right on here. We have to keep it offset like this, and we're gonna run the burr that we're setting down right here. If you have a flat lid, you can rest it, but you still obviously need the place you're setting down with your setting down hammer to be resting against metal. And this is a setting down hammer. This is the kind of hammer you are gonna need to use. Now, I'll start doing by the seam first. So, and I'm not gonna set it all the way down. I'm just gonna like do, let's see if I can show you, like just a little bit. See how that is? And then I'm gonna go across from it. So that was, let's say 12 o'clock. I'm gonna go to 6 o'clock. And what I'm doing this for is to really secure that band in there so it doesn't pop out on different sides as I go, because the last thing you wanna do is just start and work your way around and get 3/4 of the way and find out that your rim band jumped out on you, and now it's like you have to undo that entire thing or junk it. So, so then, you know, you did, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Nine o'clock. And I'm just really making sure that that rim band, and now again, I'm not really going tight. That's what the setting down machine is for too. If you don't have a setting down machine, you have to hammer it yourself the whole way down. I don't know how many of you are familiar with using a setting down hammer. You're actually hitting along the base, not the top. So I'm gonna try and do a close-up of how I use this. So it'll almost feel like you're hitting the anvil and not the metal. That's how close to the edge you want to hit first. And I kind of go around. Now again, it doesn't have to be perfect because I have a setting down machine. This is where we're gonna go next. Okay, so this is now actually a triple thickness. So I'm gonna definitely back the wheel up because if it's too tight, you'll really wreck your metal too. And you're gonna feed this into the wheel and flatten it out. Just makes a nice finished crimp seam and really smashes it down too. So, ta-da, isn't that beautiful? I don't know if you can see it. So next, and I'm not gonna make you watch this time, we'll do it next time. Next time what we're gonna do is we're going to solder all along here. Then we're going to make the handle, and we're just gonna do a 1700s clover handle, and I can discuss a little bit of, you can do riveted handles or anything like that for a lift handle. But there you have it. This is the start of a small lid for teacups, coffee cups, mugs, and things like that. So I hope that this was exciting and helpful, and you're able to try it yourself with your own tools or tools you've mocked up or have laying around. And I will see you next time for part 2 of how to build a lid. I always forget to do this. Don't forget to subscribe and tell everybody about this, and because everybody wants to be a metalsmith. And you can find me at House Copper on Instagram or on Facebook, and information is down below on different fluxes and the different machines and things like that. But until next time, thank you for watching.